My parents drained my college fund to buy my pregnant sister a house. Then she disappeared with her husband, leaving her toddler on the doorstep. And that's when the real reckoning began 2 years ago. I opened the email I had been dreaming about for years. Acceptance to my top choice university, paired with a full-ride scholarship. It felt like every late shift, every skipped hangout, every dollar I'd scraped together had finally paid off. I'd been working part-time since I was 16, socking away everything I earned into what I thought was my future safety net. Because I was still a minor and didn't have my own account yet, the money went straight into my mother's bank account every payday. I never doubted for a second that when the time came, she'd hand it back. It was mine, earned with my own hands, meant for my education. Then, one evening shortly after the scholarship news, my parents called me into the living room for a family discussion. Their tone was light, almost celebratory, as they explained that since my tuition was now covered, I clearly didn't need the several $1,000s I had saved. That money, they said, would be put to better use helping my older sister, Caroline, start her new chapter as a mother. My stomach dropped. I remember staring at them, waiting for the punchline that never came. Let me paint you a picture of Caroline. 3 years older than me, but treated like the eternal baby of the family. While I was constantly lectured about responsibility, grades, and earning my keep, Caroline floated through life on a cloud of parental excuses. Rules bent for her the way metal bends in a crash, permanently and without resistance. When she was 14, she bullied younger girls so relentlessly that the school demanded a meeting. Multiple witnesses, complaints in writing, the works. Caroline cried the moment we walked into the principal's office, and my mother immediately transformed into a lioness protecting her cub. She accused the victims of lying, insisted her daughter was being targeted because she was pretty and popular, and threatened legal action until Caroline walked away with a slap-on-the-wrist suspension and 0 real consequences. At 16, she got expelled, this time for smoking on school grounds and trying to sell weed to underclassmen. Undeniable evidence, security footage, the whole disaster. Instead of letting her face the fallout, my parents whisked her off to an elite boarding school 3 states away and told extended family it was because they wanted to give their brilliant firstborn the absolute best opportunities. Translation. They paid obscene tuition to hide the truth and preserve the illusion that Caroline was a princess, not a train wreck. You'd think almost ruining her future would have been a wake-up call. It wasn't. Within months of arriving at the new school, Caroline vanished in the middle of the night, leaving a melodramatic note about running off with her boyfriend, Nick. My parents lost their minds for 4 days until police found her shacked up at a friend's house. Did they drag her home and ground her for life? Of course not. After hours of pleading, they struck a deal: finish high school, and they would bless the marriage and financially support the couple afterward. I wish I were exaggerating. The day she turned 18, she married Nick. My parents found them an apartment, paid the rent every month, covered utilities, groceries, everything, because neither of them could hold a job for more than a few weeks. Meanwhile, I was reminded daily that if I wanted spending money, I needed to work for it. So when they sat me down and cheerfully announced they were taking my college savings, the money I had earned flipping burgers and tutoring freshmen, to buy Caroline and Nick a whole apartment because she was now pregnant, something inside me quietly shattered. My achievements, straight A's, scholarship, acceptance letter, earned polite claps. Caroline's unplanned pregnancy at barely 19, cue tears of joy and a multi-$100,000 property purchase. I begged, I yelled, I cried. They smiled beatifically and told me I should be happy to help family, especially now that I didn't need the money anyway. I stopped fighting. Instead, I went silent, counted the days until move-in day, and left without looking back. My friends helped me carry boxes. My father didn't even come downstairs to say goodbye. Within a week, my childhood bedroom had been painted soft yellow and furnished with a crib. For 2 years, contact was nearly non-existent. A perfunctory happy birthday text, maybe. I threw myself into college, worked nights as a server, and built a life that finally felt like mine. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang at 7 a.m. last week. My mother was hysterical, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her, asking if Caroline had contacted me. When I said no, she wailed that something terrible had happened. She and Dad had been woken by frantic doorbell ringing. When they opened the door, my 3-year-old nephew Jimmy was standing there alone, clutching a little backpack and a handwritten note. Caroline and Nick were gone. The note said she couldn't do it anymore. She hated being a mother, felt suffocated, and was leaving Jimmy with people who could give him the stable life she never had. My parents begged me to come home immediately. I explained I had midterms and couldn't drop everything. They accused me of being heartless. I reminded them they hadn't cared where I slept or whether I ate for 2 years unless they needed something. Now wasn't my emergency to fix. The call ended badly. After my last exam, I drove home anyway, mostly worried about Jimmy. My parents looked like they'd aged a decade. Jimmy seemed fine, happy, even believing Mommy and Daddy were just on a short trip. I asked to see the note. That's when my parents exchanged nervous glances and reluctantly handed it over. The version they'd told me on the phone was heavily edited. The real note wasn't addressed to them at all. It was addressed to me. Caroline wrote that she had always envied the way our parents raised me, strict, but it made me strong, responsible, capable. She hated the weak person she'd become under their endless coddling. She believed Jimmy deserved the upbringing I had, not the one she got. Then she begged me to raise her son. I felt the floor tilt under me. My parents sat in shameful silence until I demanded the rest of the story. Turns out, after they gifted the couple that apartment, deed in my parents' names, naturally, Caroline and Nick spiraled hard, drugs, parties, leaving infant Jimmy alone for entire nights. My parents covered it all up, paid for everything, even tried rehab twice. When Caroline started stealing from them to fund habits and the fights turned violent, my parents finally threatened to call Child Protective Services and have Jimmy removed for neglect. A week later, Caroline asked for one last loan. Then she and Nick cleaned out the apartment, left their toddler on the doorstep in the middle of the night, and vanished. Phones off, no forwarding address, police treating it as voluntary abandonment. And the first thing my parents did was try to pawn permanent parenthood off on me. They suggested, teary-eyed, that I move home, maybe take a break from college, and step into Caroline's role since that's what she wanted. When I laughed in disbelief and said we needed to involve CPS immediately, they panicked, insisting it would destroy the family and that blood should stay with blood. I stood my ground. Jimmy is currently in my parents' temporary legal custody. I visit when I can, bring him books and toys, and love him in the limited way an aunt who is still a full-time student can. My parents are selling or renting out the apartment Caroline trashed. They've expressed regret about buying it. Noticeably, still no apology for stealing my savings. I'm back at school, finishing my degree, paying my own way with scholarships, loans, and the job I still work. Jimmy will always have a place in my heart and my future when I'm in a position to offer one. But I will not let my sister's catastrophic choices, or my parents' decades of enabling, derail the life I fought to build. They chose who they wanted to rescue. Now they get to live with that choice. Thank you for watching my story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and press the bell icon. Stay tuned for more real-life stories, get more experiences.